Siberian incursion. Alright. It's time to switch over to rocket launch and some space news. I hope you guys enjoyed that Hearts of Iron. Let's switch over and go from there. Spacex Falcon 9, Starlink. Launch coverage. Alright, cool. You stream long. Yeah? So? Plan Z. What's Plan Z? Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember Plan Z. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Let me get the coverage up here in a moment. I'm going to take my stretch break now if you guys don't mind. Japan owns it for. Nice. I don't know how you have energy. I just do it, man. I just do it. Shut up and do it. Who cares? What am I doing? I'm sitting here the whole time. Hey, perfect timing. All right. I'll be right back. 1 second, dudes. Get some lunch coverage, baby.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
Pokey gifted us updegradation. Thank you. Alright, dudes. Are we ready for a rocket launch? Richie! What's up, man? Let's go to space. Hell yeah. Alright, so this is a Starlink launch going out of 39A.
Hey, I forgot to tell you we need chicken.
I'm sorry?
We need chicken. I forgot to tell you.
Okay. Streamer is back. Feels peepo, man. Feels peppo. gone already, Richie, but I'll tell her you said hi. Where's your food? Oh, Tessa, I got food for you. Hold on. I got food for you. Give me 1 second. I got something for you, boy. How long until the launch? About 15 minutes. Richie, you seeing this? You seeing this?
LWO1 WeatherNet. Liftoff conditions.
Pretty good.
ESTS is ready for launch.
This is rare over here. This is rare.
Falcon 9 is
This might be a normal thing for you. This is not a normal thing for you. For me. Wait. Yes. Look at that. Hobnobs.
10, 9, 8,
Side booster ignition.
6, 5, 4.
All right, let's enjoy a launch with our hobnobs.
1.
Serious, look at the hobnobs. Look at the hobnobs and rockets. Hobnobs and rockets.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, January 18th, and you're looking at a live view of Falcon 9 as it awaits its 9:02 p.m. Eastern Time launch from Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Coffee.
My name is Yo Mezo, and I'm a propulsion engineer here at SpaceX. I'm joining you tonight from our headquarters in Hawthorne, California, and you're watching the live webcast for our 36th launch of Starlink and our third mission of 2022. As many of you know, yesterday was Martin Luther King Jr. Day, a day where we honor the life and legacy of Dr. King, who fought for equality and an end to racial injustice. Here at SpaceX, we do our best to honor the life and leadership of Dr. King as we strive for a work environment where everyone can be their most authentic selves in order to do their best work. Speaking of work, the Starlink team has been hard at work in preparation for today's mission. If you've been following Starlink development, then you'll know that Starlink is a constellation of multiple satellites that orbit the planet at about 550
I don't have Tim
kilometers
Tam's
with
chaos.
the
That's
potential
not
to
okay.
service the entire globe. Similar to our Starlink mission last week, tonight's launch will be going to a 53-degree south inclination. We're flying in this south degree trajectory to increase recovery weather availability for both the booster and fairing halves during these winter months.
Okay. Descending
The
node.
satellites inside the fairing tonight will deploy about 15 minutes after liftoff, but we will not have ground station
Yeah,
coverage
Hardscape,
during
they
that
will be
time
able to
frame.
see it from Fort
So this
Lauderdale.
means we won't
Look
have
east.
live audio
North-
or visual
northeast.
confirmation of payload deployment in real time. Given that, we will be ending our webcast just after second engine cutoff and confirming deployment on social media
Launch day, boy.
channels once we regain coverage at T plus 1 hour and 20
Okay,
minutes.
they're going to cut the cast before deployment because lack of ground stations in the southward direction. So, what does that mean? If they launch the
Let's
rocket...
take a closer look at the rocket.
If they launch the rocket due south... So Starlink usually goes due north, but they're launching due south because the weather's better. When they launch due north, SpaceX has a ground station in New Hampshire, and that can really get you a Starlink deploy all the way down range, right? And then they have another ground station in Goonhilly in southwest UK, right? When they launch on the southward trajectory out of KSC, there's not many ground stations down there. I think the only one that's even in that direction remotely, keep in mind a long way, is Diego Garcia, but they're not going to have deployment until 45 minutes after. There's no ground stations down there that they use because they're so used to launching on the northern trajectory, but the southern trajectory is preferential for booster recovery during the winter months. That's what you may just said. So, yeah, see, there you go. They're spraying water down on the deck. Yep. Okay. Spray it on my face. They're spraying water down on the deck to film cool it. When the rocket engine comes down, the water will absorb all the heat and it won't melt the deck of the drone ship. Rocket is going to go south. Yep. So they don't have ground stations in that direction, which is why they're going to shut the cast off pretty much after landing.
On top of that is the Falcon 9 second stage, which has a single Merlin vacuum or MVAC engine. Once the first
This
and
launch
second
is live,
stages
31, yep.
separate at about 2.5 minutes into the mission, that single MVAC engine will ignite and carry the Starlink satellites to a low Earth orbit around the Earth. You'll also notice that large nose cone at the very top of the rocket. This is the Payload Fairing, and
Fairings
it
look to
protects
be
our
new.
Starlink satellites until the vehicle is outside the Earth's atmosphere, at which point we don't need it anymore, and the fairings will separate to expose the satellites to space.
Oh, Smith.
Just as we reuse Falcon 9, we also recover and reuse our fairing halves. The fairing halves we're using tonight are flight proven, and tonight's flight will be the second flight for both of these fairing halves.
Let's go, Richie,
We are
with the
planning to
20-monther.
recover these halves again using our recovery vessel Doug once they return to Earth. Propellants have been loading on the vehicle since T-minus 35 minutes. Now again, Falcon
As is
9 is
tradition.
a bipropellant vehicle, which means it uses two propellants, a fuel and an oxidizer. An oxidizer is a type of chemical that a fuel requires in order to burn. So for Falcon 9, our fuel is a refined form of
No,
kerosene known as RP1, and our oxidizer is a super chilled liquid oxygen, also called LOX. Now, the liquid oxygen is chilled well below its boiling point so that it becomes what we call densified. And this just means that it has a much greater amount of mass per volume and means we can load more of it into the booster. Additionally, Falcon 9 also needs an ignition source in order to go, and for that we use the chemical TTEB, or triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane. Once it's fully fueled, Falcon 9 holds just over 1 million pounds of propellant that the vehicle will burn through in less than 3 minutes after liftoff.
Start of the 1D engine chill.
Okay, they started running
Currently,
propellants
fuel
into
is
the engines.
nearly fully loaded on stage 1.
So what they just started doing, the engine chill, the engine chill milestone in the mission means that they've started trickling cold propellants into the rocket motors, into the 9 engines at the bottom. You'll see them do it again, actually, when the rocket's flying. They'll start chilling down the second stage engine. 9 engines in the first stage, 1 engine in the second stage for Falcon 9 here. Why chill down the engines? Well, 2 reasons. They're going to prime the engines, right? Because when you turn them on, you don't want the propellants to go down the pipes and then into the engines. And then 2, because you don't want that, because the propellants are cold, they'll exchange heat with the pipes on the way down. And you don't want to put gas into your liquid fuel rocket engine. Bad idea. It breaks. So, I know. Funny story. They're called liquid fuel engines for a reason. So you want to make sure your liquid fuel and liquid oxidizer are liquids when they get into the motor. So what you do is you trickle the propellants in using a pre-valve system. Basically, they have a bunch of pneumatically actuated valves inside of Falcon 9 that work off of it's helium, I think. And they'll start trickling propellants into the engines. That's what they're doing right now. Basically, so when they go to flip the engines on, they immediately ignite, and you don't need to worry about the engines going through a transient temperature change. You don't, because if you try to chill them down too quickly, like if you started the rocket and you chill them down too quickly, they'll shatter, because they'll go from like ambient temperature to like minus 200 Fahrenheit like that, and they'll shatter like the Terminator. Hasta la vista, baby. No, that's why they chill down the engines. So the next step here in this flight is getting the strong back into the retracted position. You'll see the second stage clamp hooks release, and then the strong back will move back just a little bit to get her into the throwback position. They're talking about orbital mechanics right there. Pockets of air into the combustion chamber are bad for startup. Okay. Yeah, pockets of air, and yeah, it's called liquid fuel. You don't want anything but liquids going in there. Okay. Yeah, okay. Sometimes it blows your mind how normal this has become. Yep. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. All right, so the next step here is the first stage. Once the engine chill is done, that means the first stage is pretty much good to go. They're still topping off a little bit on the first stage, and you'll see the clamp arms open here in a moment. And they're still topping off the second stage, but the second stage is almost filled up. It'll fill up within like the last couple of minutes before liftoff. If you see these vents pulsing out here, what they're doing is, as they're filling up, as they're filling up the fuel and oxidizer into the motor, they're trying to get gas out of there. So these things will pulse, but they're not like it's not like a constant vent. They'll pulse it every once in a while to make sure that the pressure stays the same inside of these tanks. You really want to make sure that when you fill up, I know I'm saying this like people do this all the time, right? When they fill up the rocket tanks, they got to make sure that the pressure stays the same. But how are you going to change the pressure inside of an engine without a vent? Well, you have the vents right there for that exact reason. So when you see them pulse off a little bit, that's a good indicator that they're filling the thing up with fuel. Now explain the same in Spanish. No me gusta la biblioteca. Okay. So they'll pulse these things to make sure that the pressure stays the same. So now when the second stage, a good indicator that the second stage is filled up with fuel is this little guy right here. See that little guy? I wouldn't worry about that little guy. No, what they'll do is the fuel lines for the second stage go up the white structure on the side called the transporter erector. And then your fueling umbilicals are right here. And they're going into the bottom of the second stage through the inner stage right here. A good indicator that the second stage is filled up with fuel is when they'll basically drain the fuel out of this thing. And part of what they do is purge out the liquid oxygen. They just drain the RP1 back into the RP1 tanks. But they want to get that cryogenic liquid oxygen out quick, so they vent the line. You'll see this thing shoot out a bunch of condensation. That's a good indicator that we're ready to go. That means the second stage is topped off with fuel. Jack, 12-month resub. Let it rip. Keep it up, dude. Thank you. Does the fairing have thermal blankets? It looked a bit like the space shuttle. It does. Yeah, Ace. It's not Nomex. It's close, but it's not exactly Nomex like the space shuttle. It's similar. Those fairings actually do re-enter. They come back down and land. And they do have a thermal protection system on the front. But it's not the same Nomex that the space shuttle carried. That would be kind of cool, though. Try some Ruski? Нет. Why Americans never learn a second language? Chris, nu pa-ruski. Fala Portuguese? Habla español? Parle français? No? And why do we? Because we don't have to. Yeah, ni hao ma. Ni hao ma. Anyway, moving on. Okay, so T's in the retracted position. Watch for the vent here. I'm going to bring the audio back in. I'm going to make sure we're queued up live here.
Falcon 9 to startup.
Falcon 9 is in startup. We're waiting for that final launch director go.
Okay. A polar RTLS out of left field is always nice news. Huh? This isn't polar RTLS. Yeah, the blue lights on the ramp are pretty cool, Ian. I'm with you. All right, here we go.
T-minus 15 seconds.
15. This is landing on a drone ship, Donna.
9, 8, 7, 6.
Sound suppression
5,
system is primed. They're going to spray water on the
3,
pad and make sure the rocket doesn't
2,
damage itself.
1.
There's an ignition. Uh-oh.
0. Ignition. And liftoff.
Looks good. A little bit of a hiccup right with the stream, but everything looked fine there. Go, baby, go!
Stage 1 chamber pressure is normal.
Dude, that's the stream cutting right at ignition. I'm like, okay. We are live. Everything looks good.
Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, carrying our stack of 49 Starlink satellites to orbit. Moments ago, we throttled the engines down
Telemetry nominal.
in preparation for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, which will happen here in just a few seconds at T plus 1 minute and 12 seconds.
Falcon is supersonic.
Okay, broken the sound barrier in less than 60 seconds. Not sure about this particular one, game coder. Nine, this is the 10th
Max
one.
Q.
Nice. Maximum
We
dynamic
have just
pressure.
passed through max Q, and this is the maximum aerodynamic pressure that the stage
Is
sees.
she announcing from a kitchen?
Next, we'll have
Yes.
3 events happening in quick succession. First, we'll have main engine cutoff, followed by stage separation, and then second engine startup 1. Now, first, main engine cutoff is where all 9 of those M1D engines on that first stage will shut
Ooh,
off
an
to
infrared.
slow the vehicle down
infrared
in
look.
preparation for stage
Oh,
separation.
look at the heat on the nose
This is where
cone.
the first and
Yeah, that's awesome.
This is where the first and second stages will separate,
That's IR.
with the first stage starting to make its
See the
way
heat
back to
compressing
Earth
on the
for
front of the
landing,
nose cone?
while the second stage
Oh,
continues on
that's
its
so
journey
legit.
to the
Yo!
third event of second engine startup 1. And this is where that single
this is
MVAC
ground
engine
tracking.
on the second stage will light up and propel the second stage along with the
that's
Starlink
so
satellite
cool.
to orbit. We're a
Look,
little under 30 seconds away from...
check this out. Look, you can see that the second stage is dark on the infrared because it's really freaking cold. So is the first stage, but the inner stage is nice and warm because it's not chilled down. Oh, that's so legit. And then there's heat on the nose cone. You see that? It's because it's compressing air up at the front of the nose cone, right? And if it's compressing air, it's generating heat. And you can see that heat on the infrared. That's so legit, man. I am nerding the frick out right now. There's main engine
Nico.
cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
Oh, keep this. Keep the shot. Staging. Upper stage ignition. Oh!
Inbound ignition.
Oh!
Wow,
Oh!
beautiful views from the first stage
Oh!
and second stage tracker there.
Oh!
Trajectories.
We
Oh!
did have successful
Oh,
MECA
fairing
stage
separation confirmed.
There's
Oh.
fairing deployment
Oh.
there. Again, what a cool view from the second
Look.
stage.
First stage is right there. The first stage is
And
cruising.
we
It's
did
gonna
just
go
have
out and land on.
confirmation of successful
It's gonna go out and land on the drone ship, so it's just kind of sitting there. There's the 2 fairings right there. Look, see the 2 fairing halves, and then there's the second stage. Up at that altitude, they're up 60 miles up there, so 100 kilometers give or take. There's no pressure, so the gases expand like crazy. That's why you get this ridiculously huge plume out of one engine in the second stage. But there's the first stage and the 2 fairings. This shot is
second stage
this
there.
shot's great, man. Oh, this never gets old. That's
Looks
so
like that's
cool.
the first stage, maybe also floating off to the left. Now, as stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit there, stage 1 will execute
not
2
sure what you
burns
mean,
in order
Huffles.
to make its way back home to Earth. Now, the first is an entry burn. Now, this is where 3 of the M1D engines will reignite, and this helps to slow the stage
you
down
may.
as it
You may as
re-enters the upper parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, the second burn, of course, is the landing burn, and this is a single engine burn that brings the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on the drone ship.
Ah, yes. Our robot overlords have an acquisition of signal through Bermuda. They have an AOS
You're
through
just
Bermuda,
catching
but
up
it's only
with
going
us.
to be for a
We
second.
had a successful
Because
launch
they're
of
going
Falcon
south.
9 from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, and you're looking at a live view from Falcon 9's second stage as it is delivering our Starlink payloads to orbit.
Roger, roger.
Stage 1 is currently making its way back to our drone ship, a shortfall of gravitas in the Atlantic Ocean.
Second stage cross
Yeah,
6,000.
beautiful views from the ground of the first and
Yeah,
second
6,000
stage
miles an hour.
plumes there just a little while ago.
Indeed, bro. First stage should
Now
be
the
hitting its
Merlins
apogee
on
here.
the first stage
This
are
number should start
optimized
going
for sea
down.
level, so these achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. And in contrast, the MVAC engine, which you see on your
Sometimes
screen right
Neutron,
now,
if the conditions
is
were right.
optimized for 220,500 pounds of thrust in vacuum. Now, the primary difference between these 2 engines is just the size of the nozzle. The MVAC nozzle
53
is a
degrees
lot
incline.
larger than the M1D nozzles on first stage.
Ballpark guess on what the flight costs, 40 to 60 million, somewhere in there tax. It's not very much.
Now, the
'cause
Falcon 9
'cause
is
the first
equipped with
stages
4
were used.
hypersonic titanium grid fins positioned near the top of the first stage. And the first stage is using these grid fins to help navigate and reorient
Yeah, kind
itself
of one.
as it heads
They have
back
plans
home
for a bigger rocket.
to
It's
Earth.
called Starship. And yes, it's a little bit bigger. It's bigger than a Saturn V. So, yeah, I think they have plans, dude. Oh, yeah.
first stage also has
Starship is
an attitude
reusable.
control
It's
system,
like-
which you can sometimes see puffs of nitrogen gas coming
Starship is like a combination of the Space Shuttle and the Saturn V rolled into one vehicle. It's pretty insane, dude. Check it out on their website. It's unreal. You can still see it passing? Awesome. Is it just me, or does the exhaust have a green glow to it? It looked like it had a slight green glow to it, but it looks like it's okay.
We're just about 20 seconds from the start of our stage 1 entry burn, and this is a 20-second burn, and it'll help slow the vehicle down as it
engine Uber?
enters the thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere.
Coming up on SSRP here. Supersonic
and this is a
retro
3-engine
propulsion.
burn, and it is 3 engines in a row
right.
on the
Stage 1
first stage.
FTS is safe.
Flight termination systems on the first stage have saved. Meaning that if it fails, it's just going to go into the water right now. Watch, they're going to fire the engines here.
Entry burn startup.
There's the start of the entry burn on the first
So
stage.
the first stage is slowing itself down, but it's also,
See
the engines
those
are also being
curtains
used
as
as
the
a
first
heat
stage
shield.
is flying through its own plume there.
Stage 2 FTS is safe.
The engines are also being used as a heat shield to push plasma out of the way. That's called supersonic retropropulsion. It was an idea that was thought up by NASA for landing stuff on
Just had a
Mars.
successful
SpaceX
stage
just
1 entry
used it
burn
here
there.
because the atmosphere
And
up
for those
there
who
where it
follow
does that
along, you'll
entry
know
burn.
that the
The atmosphere up there where it does that entry burn is similar to Mars's atmosphere down by the surface in terms of pressure. That's why it
They're
works.
saying the soot on the rocket indicates that it's been flown before. So the fuel that we use on Falcon 9 is rocket-grade kerosene, or RP1, which is carbon-based. So when it burns, it generates soot. Now, as the booster approaches the landing site and does that long re-entry burn that we just saw, we saw it fly through its own plume, which deposits that soot back onto
6
the
miles
first
up.
stage. Now you can see this sometimes on the pad. The soot is still stuck onto the first stage from its previous flights. And if you
Nice,
watch
that
closely
groove.
to your onboard camera during landing, you might be able to see soot sticking on the lens of those cameras as well.
Okay, the landing burn should start here in
Coming
a
up in
moment.
just a few seconds, we will have the start of our stage 1 landing burn.
Discovery.
This will be
It's
another
decelerating
about
by
20
hitting the
second
air
burn.
singularity that's
Hopefully will
keeping the
land
fuel at the
us
front.
on our drone ship,
Or at the
a
bottom.
shortfall of gravitas
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
in the Atlantic Ocean.
Okay.
Stage 1 startup.
Roger, roger. Oh, through the clouds. We got a good signal.
Start of our stage 1 landing burn.
Okay, we got a very, very low marine layer here.
Cool views of the drone ship approaching.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
Landing legs have deployed. That looks good. Yep. Yep.
Stage 1 landing.
Yep. Stage 1 bent down. Is
Right there on the middle of the drone
started up at
ship.
the top there. Everything's looking real good. Oh, man. I've watched thousands of
We
these things
did
at this
just
point
have
land. It's still cool.
The 103rd
thousands.
overall successful recovery of our first stage orbital
Nominal
class
orbit
rocket.
insertion.
That's dope. That's really dope.
And we just
That's
missed
really
it there, but we
freaking
did
cool.
have a successful second engine cutoff, and we just got that confirmation
S-Man,
of a good
52
orbit
months. Thanks,
from
buddy.
stage 2.
Yeah, look at this trajectory.
Now, next up, we'll have one more burn on the second stage that will position the vehicle for payload
Yeah.
deployment.
Expected loss of
Laser
signal.
man gifted a sub.
But
Thanks, man.
we are awaiting the deployment of our
Hundreds,
49
yeah.
Starlink
Expected loss
satellites,
of signal. Bermuda.
They have
which is
expected
scheduled
loss.
to occur about 6
Bermuda.
minutes from now at T plus 15 minutes.
So
However, you may have
freaking
just
cool,
heard the
man.
call out for expected loss of signal.
I know, it's going through
Again,
the clouds.
this,
It's so
means
good,
we
man.
won't have live
It's
audio
so
or
cool.
visual
Diesel,
confirmation
11-month
of payload
resub.
deployment due to lack of ground station coverage. But we will
Man.
acquire signal with our ground
Jacob,
station in Kodiak,
give it some
Alaska
subs.
at T
Thanks,
plus
man.
1 hour and 20
Engine
minutes.
Uber with another
So
10.
for those of you who are interested, we will
Thanks,
keep
guys.
the audio-only countdown nets up on our YouTube channel, and we'll confirm successful payload deployment on our social media channels. But with that, that brings tonight's webcast to a close. Thank you to the Range and Federal Aviation Administration for supporting tonight's mission, to all of our
crazy rocket,
viewers,
guys,
as
yeah.
well as our Starlink customers. Starlink is live in Slovakia and Slovenia, and that means we are now live in 27 countries and regions around the world. To learn more about Starlink or to find out if service is available in your area,
up, Vickers?
head over to starlink.com. Be good to one another. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. And as always, see you next time.
Nah, it's fine. Oh, nice, Bandit. There you go. Here. I'll keep the audio loops up. Let's go check out some replays. The audio loops are active here. There we go. Yeet. Hey, thanks for the gifted subs, Engine Uber, Jacobs. I appreciate it. V-Soul with a 17-monther. I want to see that landing one more time, if you guys don't mind. Not that you would. At least I don't think. Get some Discovery. Go and throttle up. When the engine lights it zooms through the clouds. That's amazing. That part was awesome. Right here. Discovery. Watch this. Go and throttle up. Ready? Yeet! Right through the clouds. That's cool, man. Thanks for all the bits, dudes, and thanks for all the gifted subs. I really appreciate it. Look, you can see the damn drone ship. Oh, my goodness. My goodness. Oh, yeah. Yeah, a little bit of residual right there. The fire should go out, though. That's just a little bit of residual propellants, guys. I always tell people, like, turning off a rocket motor is like turning off a garden hose. So, like, if you have a hose and the sprinkler's going, right, and you shut the hose off, it's not going to just stop. There's always going to be a little bit of extra water that just kind of shoots out of the hose. That's what that fire was down there, but it goes out fast enough. There's always residuals. Cutting the taps like that is tough. So, like, what they got to do when they land these engines is not only do they have to cut the taps in hopes that the extra propellants burn off, right? You also have to purge out the rocket engines. They have to hit them with helium or nitrogen or something. Because leaving locks inside of the rocket motor when it's not firing is terrible for it. That would be like pouring salt water over your car when it's parked. It's just not, it'll corrode it from the inside out. Liquid oxygen oxidizes things very easily, so it'll literally rust the engine from the inside out. You got to dry it. So they hit it with purge out propellants right after, and those residuals burning off is no problem. That happens. I always thought of it like cutting off a flamethrower or a torch. I mean, kind of, yeah. Can you replay right at landing? Looked like a bit of corrective gimbal at the last second. Yeah, probably. Let's see. No, liquid oxygen is, it rusts. Oxygen oxidizes things. I know. Hard concept. Yeah, everything looks good there. Yep, a little bit of corrective, but yep. And they had a little bit of residual. And it looks like some, there's a little bit of residual coming out of the rocket engine, but that's fine. Yeah, that everything was good there. It was a little bit off center, but it looks like there was some windage. If you look at the gases move around, the wind's definitely going that way. The wind took it a little bit. Can you go back to the stage separation and ignition? Sure. We had a really awesome infrared imaging of Falcon 9 on the way up. That was really, really cool. Oh, look at the heat on the front of the nose cone. Oh, that's so legit, man. Question, my man. Okay. Probably a dumb one, but I know that NASA was against gas and go. Can you explain the difference between that and how they would say with the shuttle or other human spaceflight systems? It honestly comes down to it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. If you've ever watched Training Day, it's not what you know, Jake, it's what you can prove. It's not that they were against load and go. Whoever was reporting that is a moron. It's not that they were against it. It's that it hadn't been proven. Once SpaceX proved it empirically with numbers that it was fine, NASA had no problem with it, and NASA astronauts have flown on a load and go Falcon 9. It's literally the data, that's all. NASA isn't like, oh my God, we shouldn't do this. You have to prove it to them. You gotta show them that it works. They're not gonna trust launching their astronauts on hopes and dreams, man. That's not how that works, right? How does SpaceX mitigate the salty air at sea level? Doesn't that help with corrosion? Basically just hose the engines down. I mean, hose the engines down and purge them out should be fine. It's the inside of the engine you don't want corroding. The outside's not that big of a deal. See, look, you can see that same residual. Same residual propellant from the engine when they shut the engines off. You see some little, it looks like it blows out some chunks. See that right there? That's some residual coming out, the residual coming out of the taps right there. See all those little guys? Right, but I think he's also asking what's the difference between load and go and traditional prop loading methods NASA would have used. Load and go means you put people on it and then load the propellants, as opposed to loading the propellants and then putting the people on it. The reason is because that, oh, hello. The reason is because that, loading a rocket up with fuel is one of the most dangerous things that you can do on the pad, because you're changing a lot of things all at once. You're changing pressures and temperatures all at the same time. And since you're changing pressures and temperatures, right, you're changing the structural makeup of the booster. So fueling is one of the most dangerous spots. So, yeah, NASA hadn't done it that way. So they were kind of skeptical of it. You got to prove it with data. You got to prove it. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove. There's the two fairings right there. The fairings will come back down. They will get them. But the fairings are really, really light comparatively to their surface area. That's a really low, what's called ballistic coefficient. So it's going to take a little while for them to come back down. The landing succeed? Sure. Yeah, everything was good. I want to see it one more time. Look at this. See, there's two different IR signatures on the plume. Might just be ignition fluid versus propellant, but it's there. It's very odd looking. You're telling me that different propellants burn at different temperatures? Yeah, you saw the igniter fluid, dude. Or an overpressure event. Oh, hell yeah. Now that one kind of jumbled up a little bit, but oh, look at that. What a crisp shot. Woo! Yeah, see that? They brought the pressure down in the tanks from flight pressure. No problem, Vickers. Yep. The internal fairing re-entry footage is one of, yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, it's scary. That footage is so ridiculous, dude. And those fairings aren't even going too incredibly fast. Can you imagine? How long for the nose cones to get back? Karmas, they're coming back from space, man. Think of it like this. If you had a rock and a piece of paper, and you drop them from the top of the Empire State Building, what's going to hit the ground first? The rock will hit the ground probably a couple minutes. Probably a couple minutes before the piece of paper. The piece of paper is just going to... The fairings are pieces of paper. The rock is the first stage. Think about it like that. So the fairings are going to take a second. They're going to take a second to come back down. Probably like 45 minutes, something like that. They take a little while. And then they'll lightly set down in the ocean, and then they'll go fish them out. Do you think we can at some stage ever recover the first stage, or is it simply not feasible? SpaceX recovers the first stage all the time, Major. You just saw them do it. I'm going to go ahead and assume you're talking about the second stage. That's the problem that Starship is trying to address. Starship is a reusable second stage, guys. That's what it's supposed to do. So yeah, SpaceX is working on addressing that with couple $1 billion right now, to say the least. Yeah, scary. Do the fairings float? They do, Dylan. Yeah, if you go back and look at pictures of the thing on the pad, the fairings have vents. See these vents right here? Those vents are to vent the air out inside of the fairing as the rocket goes up. But if you notice, they're towards the brim of the fairing right here. On earlier Falcon 9 designs, there was a vent here, and then there was a vent here, and then there was a vent here. But SpaceX got rid of them, and then they waterized the fairings. So they're watertight. And then they kept the vents up at the top. The reason why they kept the vents up at the top is because the fairing's super, super freaking light, and thus super, super freaking buoyant. So the water level is like right here. See the vents? If you look at older Falcon 9s, the vents go all the way around the circumference of the fairings. But on the newer versions of Falcon 9 with the waterized fairings, they're up here. Once again, those are the vents. It's basically a hole in the side of the fairing to allow air to go out, because as the rocket goes up higher, you need to get that air out of the fairing somehow. You don't want to have that air compressed inside of the fairing when you let it go, because then you'll get an uncontrolled decompression. You don't want to do that. Even the shuttle, if you look closely, the shuttle had vents on the side of the payload bay to do the same thing. But see, these ones are all bunched up on one side. They're bunched up on one side because when the fairing comes back down and hits the water line is, the draft of the fairing is like right here where my mouse cursor is. So they float. Yeah, really, really awesome stuff from SpaceX. The fact that they got the fairing to float and that you could take it out of the water and reuse it and have it not land and break into 1,000 pieces is pretty crazy. Speaking of Starship, I haven't asked in a while. What is your net as of right now? March. Way into March, dude. Show this, please. You guys want to see the fairing stuff? Sure, why not? Why not? Take a look. Question, why haven't they put command pods inside of fairings? Because that would be like saying, why haven't we put a steering wheel on the trailer of a car? Why do you need that? You don't need that. Just make a truck. Sped up footage of how they recover them. Yeah, that's what the fairing looks like. See, this is an older fairing. See, the vent holes are down the bottom? See, when it landed in the water, the fairing would sink because water would get in here. Isn't that cool? And then Thomas's link here. You want to see how they pull them out? They have a boat with a big robotic. I was gonna say robotic arm, but it's a big freaking crane. Take a look. See? They just. Yep. How much mass does the fairing have? Sig, the fairing's I don't know, couple tons, 3 to 4 tons. So like 4,000 kilograms, something like that. Now keep in mind, that's really, really, really light for how big this thing is. The fairing is as big as a semi-truck trailer. So like we're talking like a 53-foot 18-wheeler trailer. That's how big that thing is. It's gigantic. I mean, look at it. Look at the fairing comparatively to the railings and stuff on the sides of Doug. It's huge. It's a very big fairing. Like you could, it's like as big as like a 2-car garage or something, and that's just one of the halves, right? So it's very, very light for its volume. That's why it's like a piece of paper coming back down from space. It has what's called a very, very high coefficient of drag and a very, very low ballistic coefficient, meaning it's very big and it's very light, kind of like a parachute almost. And it can use most of that lightness to slow itself down to mitigate reentry heating. It looks like a D-Day landing craft. Actually, you know what, Nick? It's about as big as a Higgins boat. Actually, a Higgins boat could probably fit barely inside of that fairing. If I had to guess, the Higgins with the drop down front, it could probably fit in there. It might be a little bit bigger than a Higgins boat, but yeah, that's about the same size. Yeah, good call. The low pressure volume of the draft behind the fairing is wild. It has to be like what, 60, 70 foot? Yeah, pretty much, Gary. Yeah, something like that. The best boat name ever, Radioactive. Yep. And there you go. They just pick it up and they put it right back on there. Yep, there you go. Doug. Yep. And then these fairings, like I said, they're waterized fairings. So these things can take hit in salt water. That's pretty damn good. There's not many pieces of rocket equipment out there that can take being dunked in salt water and they're just like, yeah, it's fine, just bring it back. The SRB casings and then maybe that fairing and that's about it. About 1,900 kilograms for a fairing. There you go. Yeah, so they're even lighter than I thought. Yeah, they're super light. They're watertight, guys, which is pretty awesome. That had me thinking, how is Sea Dragon ever going to deal with it? Magic. A Higgins boat wouldn't fit in the standard fairing, but will fit in the extended fairing. Thank you for the fact check, man. So it's about the size of a Higgins boat, which is pretty cool. That was actually a really cool analogy. Pretty good. Yeah, here, you guys want to see? Here, another angle. You guys digging out all the fairing footage that SpaceX has posted over the years. Look. Oh! Oh, man, that's so cool. That never gets old. They use Flex Seal? Yes. So, fairings for separating, they use compressed air. All fairings have a composite overwrap pressure vessel in it, and then they use a pneumatic valve. You can see the pneumatic valves for separation up here on Falcon 9. They're up there at the top. They're at the top on most rockets. But they basically have compressed cans of air, and they shoot against each other. That separates the fairing. Now, Spacex took that one to the next level. They used those same composite overwrap vessels for separation, and they filled them up with a little bit of extra propellant to get the fairing to orient correctly during re-entry. It's used as an RCS during re-entry so the thing can steer itself down, and then it has a parachute. It has actually a parafoil, so it basically hang glides back down, which is really freaking cool. It's really interesting stuff. Here, ready? Whee! You can see this one's parachute right there. That's a stack of Starlink satellites. You see, these things are really, really... See it wiggling? See the piggly wiggly? They're really, really delicate. Really delicate stuff. Send the fairing to the moon as a temp shell. It might hit hard, but it might survive. Yeah. It's aluminum, so it would be good at popping off rad shielding. Maybe. That would be kind of funny. The thing about fairings is that they're hard to make. They have to get put into an autoclave to be made correctly, which is... Yeah, that's tough. I want to see the landing one more time, if you don't mind. I just want to point out the crispness of this shot. You could see the Merlin 1D's gas generator. You could see the gas generator dump. This shot is so clean. Look. So the engine's coming down, and you'll see some black soot coming out of the side of the engine right there. See that? That's the gas generator. What the gas generator is a jet engine that's strapped to the side of the Merlin 1D engine. It's a jet engine. But instead of a jet engine that makes thrust, it's designed to turn a pump. It's designed to turn a fuel pump. Like a helicopter engine is designed to turn a rotor blade. It's called a gas generator, an open cycle gas generator. The exhaust from that gas generator isn't generating much thrust because the jet engine exhaust was being used to turn the pumps, right? But what you end up getting, because they run the engines fuel rich, they run it fuel rich to keep it nice and cool. They run a very, very rich mixture to keep for cooling purposes, right? You see a bunch of unburnt soot coming out of the dump from the open cycle, and you can clearly see it right there, which is really, really neat. That's really cool stuff. Long story short, what I'm trying to tell you is that Falcon 9 rolls coal. That's why the boosters come back all charred up. They're not charred up. That's actually unburnt carbon getting adhered to the side of the booster because it flies through its own plume. Oh, that's so legit, man. You don't know how difficult that is. Can you reshow the launch too? Yeah, buddy. Oh, we've watched a ton of these things, man. It's so cool. It's so freaking cool. Want a bite? No, I'm good. Reagan, 15-month resub. Thanks, buddy. Not shuttle cool, Prey, but still cool. Yeah. Difficult. It's easy now, Kappa. Yeah, I know, right? Ugh. Heck yeah, roll coal. That's what it does, Farm. She rolls coal. It's kerosene, dude. Kerosene, the next door neighbor of diesel fuel. Yeah, that's what this is. It's kerosene, or actually, it's closer to Jet A or JP5 or something like that. It's closer in the family tree of petrochemicals to that, but it's a distant cousin of diesel fuel, so it rolls coal. Thanks, dinosaurs. Yeah, that's right. Oh, look at the roll program. It's a distant relative, but they're still related. That's why, I mean, like I said, that's why these things are all sooty when they come back down. See? See all the crap that's covering it? The only reason there's clearer parts of the booster is because this is the parts that had ice on it, because it had propellants in it when it flew through its own exhaust. That's why you can see it kind of scratched off right here, and why, you know, there's clumps of ice. That's what these dots are. There's clumps of ice everywhere that the soot adheres to, and then the ice melts and it cleans the booster off. These white lines right here are Weld inspection lines. What they basically do is, between flights, a couple of SpaceX technicians with an X-ray the welds on the tanks to make sure that they're not broken, especially with a booster that's been used 10 times. You want to do a pre-flight check, just like an airplane. Pretty cool, huh? This is the 10th flight for that booster. Well, it was the 10th flight for that booster because it landed already. Got him. How did they clean up the rockets? A lot of degreaser. Sig. I'd imagine that cleaning off the side of this is like cleaning a charcoal grill. Yeah. Because this is basically this is basically charcoal. You probably have to hit that thing with a shine all day. Yeah, what rocket guy said, Neb? They're pyrophoric ignition fluids. Basically, they use triethyl aluminum and triethyl borane. When those two combined, if they find oxygen, they explode. Yeah. Shortfall of gravitas is 6 out of 6 so far, which is a better success rate than LZ1. Yep. Where do you think the bathtub curve is for Falcon 9 launches? What do you mean, Scary? Missed the landing force?
Discovery, go at throttle up.
You ready for back-to-back RTS CSG2 from the Cape at LZ1 and NRL 89 at LZ4? I'm in. Hey, Max, 64-month resub. Honestly, the real pain has got to be the locks cleaning Merlin with isopropyl between each mission. Coking is annoying. Oh, yeah, yeah, Prey, yeah. 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 Freaking coking, man. Long story short, guys, because the rocket engines run super fuel rich, you get a lot of soot buildup inside of the engines. Somebody's got to go in there and clean that out. Somebody. It ain't me. It ain't me, but someone's got to clean it out. Takes 1 to 2 flights to make sure everything is good, high risk, and then it's low risk knowing it's good. But when do you think the risk climbs back up? Well, Scary, judging by what I've seen here, I guess it just really is. The welds on the booster, I guess. Like, oh, of course, Mad Cobra. Yep. But would you do it if you were offered the job? Yep. Be the cleanest engine you've ever seen, Blue. You could eat. You'd be able to eat out of a Merlin if I was cleaning them. How much does it cost to clean it? Not much. Not much. Not much comparatively to the booster. Anything to do with rocket science, Nutbuster, is expensive. Those rocket engines would be clean enough to eat off of if it was me. I'd just be like, yes, little rocket engine, you will fly again. I'd probably do that, and the other people there would be like, okay, see that guy? Avoid that guy. I'd be like, I wouldn't use a pressure washer. You got to use isopropyl. You don't want to rust the inside of the engine. How often do Merlin 1Ds need new turbo pumps? As far as I know, per SpaceX's definition, Major Who, if they say the booster has been used 10 times, that means it's been used 10 times with the 10 engines that it came from the factory, from what I understand. But with that being said, there could have been swaps. I've heard things of engines being swapped from one Falcon 9 to another. Yes, illness, of course. Yeah, of course, Buck. I'd take that thing apart and just be like, yep. All right. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. That was pretty dope. Pretty dope of a launch. I still got the communications up. We're waiting on the deploy here. Back to Hearts. Oh, do you want to go back to Hearts? We could just do Space News tomorrow if you want. To crawl in the F-16 intake must wipe down by hand. Yep. No, I'd give you a hug. Oh, okay. All right. Yes, of course, Blackness. Yep. Space news, please. There's not much else. Nothing that we couldn't roll over into tomorrow's space news blacklist, but there really isn't. The launch was the big space news. In terms of like outgoing rocket flights, the next one is PSLV, right? And then Atlas V on the 21st. We'll cover the Atlas V. I'm not sure about PSLV. And then CSG-2 is on the 27th. Another Falcon 9 launch in about a week and a half. A little under a week and a half. Which is pretty rad. Starliner update. Oh. Okay. Let's see what's going on with the Starliner update then. All right, let's see. Last day of Fixmas. Oops. You heard Microsoft is buying Activision Blizzard. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, I don't care. I don't know enough about that, to be honest with you, Penta, that it warrants discussing on stream. And even if we did, I could see that could easily just turn into a conversation that I don't really care about really quickly. Let's just talk about Starliner, huh? Stratolauncher also flew. Yep, Stratolauncher flew over the weekend, which is pretty cool. Boeing prepared to replace Starliner service modules ahead of upcoming OFT-2. NASA and Boeing continue making progress toward the agency's upcoming OFT-2 mission to the ISS as part of the Commercial Crew program. Teams recently completed offload fueling from the OFT-2 spacecraft inside of Starliner's production facility at Kennedy Space Center in Florida in preparation for separating and replacing the current service module from the crew module. Starliner team and successful completion of the spacecraft's development phase are critical to sustaining the International Space Station operations through 2030, said Steve Stitch. The team's dedication to developing effective remedies and corrective action after our first OFT-2 launch attempt demonstrates their continued commitment to safely flying NASA crews for years to come. Artemis Manifest, okay. One thing at a time, boys. One thing at a time. Opinion on this. In December, Boeing decided to move up service modules currently in production for its upcoming uncrewed and crewed flight tests. The service module, originally planned for the CFT mission, is now being used for the Flight Test 2 mission. And the service module, originally planned for Starliner's post-certification mission, Starliner 1, will now be used for the crew flight test. With fuel offload complete, the spacecraft was moved out of the hazardous processing area and into the production factory high bay. Because this is not an operation that we normally perform, our team took time to fully coordinate and assess the proper spacecraft and ground support equipment configurations, and then execute the plan to ensure safety of our team. Basically, they said they wanted to be very careful while they were taking the hazardous fuels out because they don't usually do it. That's the plain English way of saying that. Once separated in the coming weeks from the OFT-2 crew module, SM-2 will be sent to NASA's White Sands test facility in New Mexico for additional testing related to the issue affecting the spacecraft's oxidizer isolation valves. The investigation into the valve issue continues to substantiate the most probable cause is the interaction of moisture with nitrogen tetroxide that permeates through the Teflon seal in the valve, leading to corrosion. Testing continues to fully understand how this occurrence affects the valves in various environments. Test includes environmental seal evaluation and exposing valves in a controlled setting to temperatures and conditions similar to those that the spacecraft experienced prior to the planned launch of OFT-2. The results of these tests will help the ongoing development of remediation efforts to prevent similar issues on future service modules. For example, the team designed a purging system that will be integrated into the spacecraft to protect the valves from potential exposure to moisture at the factory launch complex and launch pad. Progress also continues with the production of the new service module SM4 that will go into the OFT-2 crew module. That service module was recently moved from the low bay production area to the facility's hazardous processing area for high pressure leak testing. Remaining tasks before mating this service module with the OFT-2 crew module include acceptance testing, final wire harness mating, installation of solar array panels, and final closeouts. NASA and Boeing continue to work towards an opening in ULA's launch window availability in May for OFT-2. An actual launch date will be determined closer to spacecraft readiness, and with consideration of Eastern Range and International Space Station availability, potential launch windows for the crew flight test are under review and will be determined after a safe and successful OFT-2. Guys, that further confirms what I was thinking. Something happened with that service module on the way from the factory to the pad. Something weird happened. I don't know what it is. Maybe it could be a storm. Maybe somebody dropped the damn thing. I have no idea. But Boeing and NASA both said, in regards to a NASA Aerospace Safety Advisory Panel, that that problem was encountered between ONC and rollout, meaning on the way to the pad. Somebody did something, because it never made sense to me, and that article pretty much confirms it. It never made any sense. Why does this Starliner have problems? They've already launched 2 Starliner service modules. One for the abort test, and the other one made it into space and performed fine. So what's the difference here? The difference is that something happened when this thing rolled out to the pad. I don't know what it is. They'll figure it out, though. But something caused that thing to rust from the inside out, which is very strange. It performed fine. The service module was never the problem, Jim. The computers controlling it was on the OFT-1 mission. Computers controlling it had lots of problems, didn't they? Not Starliner, though. You should know that the service module was finished in March, stayed in storage until July when it got fueled. So during that storage time, something could have happened. I told you that it's sitting there is probably something went weird because they changed the integration because, yeah, it got delayed, right? I mean, it's something. I don't think there's a problem with Starliner. I think this is just bad luck, but it's not bad luck. That's the thing. Can you imagine if this happened to a spacecraft when it was on orbit? That's death. Death for people aboard. That's a death sentence. Your propulsion systems don't work. So I'm really happy that whatever this problem is, they figured it out here on the ground, so it didn't happen to anybody up in space. Left a chamois in it. Yeah, maybe, Scary. Yeah, maybe. So that's pretty good. I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty happy that they found that problem here and not anywhere else. Finding it on the ground is the safest place to find it, because you don't want to find it when you're up in space. Bad idea. You don't need your spacecraft exploding while you're on the way out. That doesn't end well. Well, kind of ends well, but you get the idea. Okay, what else do we have? This is a tweet from Stephen Clark. What do we got from Spaceflight Now? What's up? What's on your mind here? Wayne Hale from NASA's Advisory Council notes he is bothered by an apparent lack of transparency from NASA. At least in my era of the shuttle, we were forthcoming about problems in schedules. There seems to be a marked decrease in this information flow. NASA's apparent lack of transparency in public statements bothers you a lot. There's a real thirst out there for a better understanding of what NASA is doing, and for some reason, they can't seem to push that out in the way we used to back in the shuttle days. Agreed. A red rag left in the engine blew up Ariane Flight 36. No joke. Oh, niche joke. Oh, okay. Nice. Yeah, that's the thing. The stuff takes time. Spacecraft have teething problems. Starliner has teething problems. Dragon does. The space shuttle did. Starship will. Dude, this is just how this works, man. You gotta be patient. You don't want the commercial crew program having casualties. That would be catastrophically bad. Because you know somebody out there is chomping at the bit to get that program canceled, etc., because commercial's not a good idea, which is, I mean, I kind of halfway agree and I halfway don't agree. You know what I mean? You logging off after the space talk? I'm not sure, man. Maybe. That report of NASA and Boeing knowing about issues and deciding to go ahead has Wayne underemphasizing that. Yeah. Yeah, but didn't NASA and Boeing say that the safety advisory panel, didn't they say that they went ahead with the flight readiness review on the OFT-2 mission because they weren't aware the service module hadn't malfunctioned yet? That's the whole gist of this thing. So, I mean, it's not lack of transparency. Once again, you can't predict the damn future, you know? Like, that's my whole beef with this. Everybody's dumping on Starliner like Boeing and NASA could predict the failures that will happen with the failures that could have happened with the service module. And even then, they can predict it to a certain extent. If a freak accident happens, like someone drops the stupid thing, or it gets hit by a storm and gets flooded, which may have happened, I don't freaking know. How can you foresee that? How do you know that that's going to happen? You roll out to the pad, a monsoon happens, and now your spacecraft and service module, which has only flown once prior, is getting hit by gale force winds. You know what I mean? It's just, there's no way you can predict that. Those are called unknown unknowns. Gene Kranz talks about this in his book, Failure is Not an Option. If you want to learn about how to conduct flight operations, that's a good book to start. There's just stuff you can't predict. So you have to be ready. That's the point. There's only so many things you can predict and kind of curtail, right? But sometimes, you know, you'll launch your spacecraft and the side of it blows up while you're on the way out to the moon. Figure it the frick out. Yeah, exactly, Bucky. You know somebody will spout that garbage. And even though, like, I halfway agree, it's canceling commercial crew is an idiotic idea at this point. Did you watch the Cheyenne 13 launch? I don't know what that is. No. I think they just shouldn't have rolled out before the storm. I'm guessing that's the reason, but I don't know anything. Yeah, MC. See, you say that, right? Yeah, I agree. Oh, just roll out before the storm. Like storms are predictable in Florida, right? Think about it for a second. Florida could be a monsoon condition 1 second, and then 10 minutes later, it'll be nice and sunny out. You can only predict the weather to a certain extent. Weatherman can't tell you the future. It's just that Boeing always seems to be on the lower end of what stuff to expect. NASA picked Boeing for commercial crew because they wanted a fallback option because SpaceX was the cavalier option. Boeing going slow is exactly what NASA bargained for. That's exactly what they asked for. I don't seem to recall, and I don't think Boeing would overlook that, do you? They said they knew something was fishy with the valves when the capsule was in the VIF. And you should know that the capsule rolled out to the pad, waited in a storm, then when Nauka did a little trolling on the ISS, they rolled back to the VIF after the capsule stayed in a storm all day. I think it's just compounding failures with operations, guys, and that's still, because you expect the Nauka module to flip the ISS end over end. Once again, you guys don't know the future. Like it's so easy to say it in hindsight. It's so easy to say, "Oh, well, you just should have fixed those O-rings on the shuttle," right? Well, to be fair, that's true, but it's so easy to say in hindsight. Everybody's like, "Oh, Starliner and Boeing, no, they should have done this. They should have done this." Okay, if they should have done it, maybe you should go work for them, and maybe you should figure out how difficult this is. You don't. It's not that simple. I'm sorry, it's not. It never was. Do a flip! Yeah, scary, right? It's just bad luck, homies. It's just the way it is. Just didn't expect it to be this slow. Because Boeing has experience building capsules in the last 50 years? What spacecraft has Boeing made in the past 50 years? Oh, wait. The space shuttle? That was Rockwell. They have the IP for it. and they supported the shuttle program. They were not involved with engineering that vehicle. Boeing bought out North American once upon a time. North American made the Apollo CSM. That was 55 years ago. So you have all the drawings and everything. So where's the... Guys, it's always going to take a second. Always. This launch. Yeah, I don't cover Chinese launches, dude. It takes time, dudes. I think this is where you're wrong. Not criticizing you or your work. I love it all. But I think NASA chose them to appease congressmen and for no other reason. No offense or insult meant, honestly. I don't mean any disrespect, but I think you saying, oh, it's just to appease congressmen, it's just to do this, it's just to do this, is incredibly short-sighted. That's really short-sighted. Who else are you going to go with? Boeing is basically a surefire win, regardless of congressional funding or lobbying or whatever. That's basically a surefire win. Who else are you going to go with? Now, keep in mind, people are going to say, oh, Blue Origin, oh, Sierra Space, oh, they could have done this, they could have done this. It was between Boeing, SpaceX, and Sierra. You going to choose Dream Chaser? Keep in mind, it's not how it is now. This is 2014. Dream Chaser, its engines exploded on the test stand. So, respectfully, dude, I'm not trying to be a jerk. You don't know what you're talking about. That's not how that played out, man. It's just not. There may have been something involved, right? Maybe. I'm not going to say that there isn't, but that's not how that played out. Dream Chaser was originally supposed to use hybrid engines, and those hybrid engines malfunctioned on the test stand. And that basically sealed the deal for NASA and Boeing. NASA was considering SpaceX, Sierra Space, and Boeing for 3 commercial crew variants. They didn't go with the Dream Chaser because its engines blew up. Boeing hasn't won anything in 2 decades. The SLS core stage? No? The X-37B? Yeah, good point, Engine Uber. I mean, like... You guys got to cast your mind back to when these contracts are focused. You can't look at a contract award for commercial crew from 2022. That doesn't make any sense. They awarded these contracts in 2014. What were you doing in 2014? How much did you know about space then? See what I'm talking about? It's really easy. It's real easy to, think, oh, it's just congressmen, or oh, they should have chose this. Guys, I could tell just by what you're saying that you don't like, that's, no, it's not, it's more complicated than that, homies. It always is. Anyway, let's go to the next news. SpaceX had the chance of learning from Dragon 1, but on the other side, Boeing got nearly double the money, and they screwed NASA for $260 million for assured schedule in 2016. Yeah, I mean, once again, Forge, we always end up playing these stupid games. It's very clear that you have a bias towards Boeing. Like, it's very clear that you don't like it. And yeah, they maybe did screw NASA out of it, and that's messed up, and that probably should be bad. But you shouldn't be like. That's not a good way to conduct yourself, man. Like, I'm telling you, you don't know better. Like, sorry, you don't. I don't know better. Nobody does, except for Boeing and NASA. And if that's what NASA wants to go with, man, that's what NASA wants to go with. Like, people could say, oh, it's the politicians, or oh, it's corrupt, or it's not. You can't. Politicians can't regulate against engineering. You can't come up with laws that beat the laws of physics, all right? The laws of physics are higher than the laws of man. It doesn't work that way. How are you in the future? Your clock says 10 and mine's 9:57. I have no idea, Sawyer. It just likes to be fast. We're not against Boeing, but the fact that Boeing hasn't successfully finished a cup holder in the last 2 decades. Why do you see? That's what I mean. Why do you keep saying that? You say that you're not against Boeing, and then you don't even know what Boeing's working on, Farah. Hold on a second, homie. What? I'm confused. What's SLS then? And before you go and move the goalpost, it hasn't flown yet. Yeah, okay, that argument's going to work for probably maybe another month and a half. Then what are you going to say? Then what? What about that thing? What about this thing? What about the X-37? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Let's get to the next news. All right. Jim Freeze shows projected launches and other milestones for NASA exploration and space operations. March 31 date for the AX-1 mission is new to me. It was February 28th. NG-17 on the 19th. Goes T on March 1st. Mark Van High is to set a new record for human spaceflight. Cool. He's been up there for a while. Capstone on the 19th. Sweet. That's Rocket Lab's Capstone mission in March. And then the AX-1 mission is net March 31st. Artemis 1 in March or April. Orion splashdown pending Artemis 1 launch. Eclipse flight first quarter. Crew 4 net April 15th. Boeing OFT-2 May 2022. Astrobotics Eclipse flight in June 2022. Nice. Are you losing your voice? I've done a lot of talking today, man. That's all. Just done a lot of talking. Will the F-250 be ready for wallops? Probably not. The winter's killing me, John. Free says that the reorganization of HEOMD into separate exploration and space operations mission directorate is still going through the approval process. Hope in the near term all stakeholders approve. Let's see what we got here. Working manifest for technical integration. Yeah, Kizek, that's in a couple of months, dude. Okay. Yeah, there you go, Kizek. So, yeah, 2024, Artemis 3, 2025. Artemis 4, not even on the books. Artemis 5. Okay. I have. Interesting. I don't like this gap here, but that's what happens when you have waterfall testing. It's just the way that is, man. IAB is one of the ESA's modules for Gateway. We'll ride in the Universal Stage Adapter. Cool. It's gonna be pretty sweet, man. Thomas, we're like this close to opening up the threshold on SLS. It's like that close from being amazing, dude. Wait, so Artemis 3 is supposed to dock with the first components of the Gateway. That's what that looks like from that plan there. Yep. Power and propulsion element in the habitation and logistics outpost is launching on Falcon Heavy. That should be ready in late 2024. SpaceX is launching it, which is pretty cool. That's going to be an awesome launch. I mean, you know what's crazy? Putting Falcon Heavy and SLS together to get back to the moon would be a pretty awesome architecture in itself. The fact that Falcon Heavy, SLS, and Starship are all going to be used for freaking going back to the moon is pretty freaking cool. Artemis 3 per this is docking to the human landing system. Oh yeah, HLS option A. Oh yeah. Wait, Artemis 2 is docking. Whoa, wait a minute, Thomas, look. HLS is docking to, Artemis 2 is docking to HLS option A. And then there's going to be another Starship that Artemis 3... Oh, that's going to be freaking cool, man. Wait a minute. 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 Is Artemis 2 going to dock to the lander, but not land? Artemis 2 is not docking to Starship, but will be around the same time as the uncrewed landing test. We just need to draw a dotted line all up in there. Draw a dotted line all up in there. Draw a dotted line, just connect those two, man. That'd be really cool. If we exclude the whole dropping stages on people for a moment, roughly how much Delta V would we be saving by launching from a higher elevation, something like Denver? You'd gain a little bit, but sacrifice a whole lot Wednesday, because building a launch site up there, I mean, maybe from Denver it wouldn't be that, it would be okay, but you're running risk, you're shifting risk to other places. One, now you got to build a launch complex up in Denver. You got to get everything up there. So every Falcon 9 that ever gets made needs to be towed up the Rocky Mountains. Yeah, hard pass on that one. Now, okay, yeah, you gained a mile in altitude, right? You're at a higher inclination. Denver's at a higher inclination than Florida. So now you actually need more Delta V, because where Denver is at its high latitude, it actually has less lateral motion than it does up and down motion, right? Literally, because Earth's a non-uniform sphere, closer to the equator, you have more speed. You're spinning faster. Not much, but a little bit. Enough to impart enough on the vehicle. Basically, you gained a little bit of Delta V to lose a lot of Delta V and make building the launch site and logistics a lot harder. Yeah, it's not a good idea. And that's not even including the safety factor. If a stage lands on somebody, but you said don't include that, so. Like, think about it like this, dude. How fast does it take Falcon 9 to get a mile up? It takes a couple, like 30 seconds? I mean, 30 seconds is a lot for a first stage, but you're losing Delta V in other spots. If there was a mountain at the equator, it would make sense. But I'm pretty sure all the mountains that are even near the equator are in very remote areas. So, like in the Amazon or something. Pretty sure we shouldn't do that. Just hypothetically, let's assume there was a tall mountain plateau right near a coast on the equator. If a launch site and all that infrastructure could be built, would that be the optimal launch site? Yes. Launching from the Bahamas would be a great idea. Yeah, if we could build a bridge to the Bahamas and then build out the infrastructure that you need to build a launch site. And after spending millions of dollars to do that, you're saving like a couple $100,000 on your rocket launch performance. Yeah, no, it really wouldn't, T-Man. Like, in an ideal world, sure, yeah, but you guys aren't thinking about your factory, where your factory is, moving stuff to the pad, power draws, power demands, like commodities. Where's the LOX going to come from? They just poop it out. Because there's a locks company in the Bahamas, I'm sure there is. Can they hit capacity to launch all the time? Probably not. See what I'm talking about? There's a lot more stuff that denotes a launch site than just launch vehicle performance. Anyway, what else do we got? We got an EGS article, and then there's the Starship stuff. But I've been going for about 10 hours, dudes. If you guys don't mind... if you guys don't mind, I'm going to, I'm going to call it for the night. I'm getting a little tired. I'm trying to limit streams during the week to just 10 hours. Like, the racing streams can go a little bit longer. But, yeah, this was a fun stream. I enjoyed it. Good times. What do we got? Who is out and about streaming? Hey. What if I do mind? GTA tomorrow? Yeah, I'll play GTA. We'll do the track editor in the morning, John, and then I think Hearts of Iron after Space News. People want to see Nihon. Enjoyed the Hearts of Iron? All right, Anichiro, I'm glad you like it. Yeah. It's all good. Take it a little easy. Yep. Let's see. Hey, Baron is, Bad News Baron's playing some, I think he's playing Star Citizen. Dude, I haven't seen him on in forever. Let's go see what he's up to. Have a good night, guys. Thank you very much for watching.